I think too often energy development and environmental protection are perceived as being irreconcilable alternatives, that we either develop the energy that we need, but in doing so just spoil our environment, or we have to, in protecting the environment, forego the energy that we utilize and some of the tax and employment and other economic benefits associated with that. I don't think that's true, and I don't think that's accurate. I think we can do both, and I think Colorado's experience indicates how we can do both. In the 3 years after we comprehensively amended our regulations, energy production increased significantly in the state. Oil production is up 30%, natural gas production is up 10%. Colorado has had more new wells started than any surrounding state, and we've been able to accomplish this in an economic recession and despite continued low natural gas prices. At the same time, we're doing a better job of protecting our environment. The use of closed-loop drilling systems that reduce the potential risk of water contamination has more than doubled during this period of time. Based on a survey taken early last summer, about 60% of the hydraulic fracturing fluids were being recycled. About 85% of the well completions were green completions that minimized methane emissions. Wells are being constructed further away from existing residents. And oil and gas companies working with the state of Colorado have developed 14 different wildlife mitigation plans that are allowing energy to be developed while doing a better job of protecting wildlife and habitat over 750 square miles of some of our best habitat. So we've been able to do both, produce energy, protect the environment, and that's important because at the end of the day we're all energy consumers, but we're also all environmentalists. The first thing to understand is that shale cannot be economically produced without hydraulic fracturing. So hydraulic fracturing is not optional. It is necessary to produce shale and other unconventional oil and gas resources economically today. Second thing to understand is there's been a lot of experience with this process. It's not a new technology. The commercial application of hydraulic fracturing began in the 1940s, so we have more than 60 years of experience with it. It's evolved during that period of time in terms of the volumes of fluids and the pressures and some of the applications, but the essential process of injecting fluid mixtures under high pressure down the wellbore to fracture the hydrocarbon formation goes back decades, and more than 1 million wells in the United States have been hydraulically fractured. It's an industrial process, and all industrial processes have certain environmental risks. But states like Colorado have adopted responsible regulations to minimize those risks. And so we require, as I explained earlier, that wells be cased and cemented to ensure that the hydraulic fracturing fluid going down the wellbore and the oil and gas coming up the wellbore won't contaminate groundwater. We impose requirements at the surface, like secondary containment and other regulatory requirements to minimize the risk of spills and releases at the surface of these fluids. We do a number of other things from a regulatory standpoint to address hydraulic fracturing. I think looking forward over the foreseeable future, if unconventional oil and gas resources are to be developed, it will require hydraulic fracturing. And it will require hydraulic fracturing of the sort that's occurred in the United States. Now again, I think like other industrial processes, that can be regulated in a safe and environmentally protective manner. And I think states like Colorado, other states in the U.S. have developed regulations that are transportable for this purpose, that have worked well in Colorado to protect our environment, and that can be looked at as a model by countries in Europe who have this resource and are interested in developing regulatory programs for this purpose. The other point that's worth making about hydraulic fracturing and shale in particular is that the shale resources that are being fractured are typically 3,000 meters below the surface. The usable groundwater is typically much shallower, several hundred meters below the surface. So there's a great geologic separation between the two. In the United States, we typically characterize this as about a mile of geology. Geologic formations are separating the hydrocarbons that are being fractured from the groundwater that we're intending to protect. That geologic separation, coupled with the kinds of well construction requirements that I mentioned earlier, requiring the casing and the cementing of the well and other measures, help minimize the risk of groundwater being contaminated by hydraulic fracturing. I think the question that's challenged me the most, and it's a question that challenges us in the United States as well, is how do we educate the public about energy production and hydraulic fracturing? I view hydraulic fracturing as a symptom of a larger challenge, which is, I think the public too often misunderstands where our energy comes from, what our energy options are, and what the issues associated with those energy options are. We all perceive the need to move to ultimately more renewable sources of energy. But that's going to take time. And today, in the United States, for example, about 60% of our energy comes from oil and gas. About another 20–25% comes from coal. And so it's going to take time to transition from a hydrocarbon-based energy system and economy to a more purely renewable energy system and economy. And we need a bridge to get there. And I think many people in the United States believe that natural gas can provide that bridge and do so in a manner that helps reduce greenhouse gas emissions when we compare natural gas to coal, and that can provide lots of economic and employment and other benefits during this period.